Hi, everyone. We're having a technical difficulty, so as soon as we're able to get our get our screen working, we will start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chair Janelle Wilkins. The date is January 27th, and we will begin our bill hearings for today. Thank you to our bill sponsors and witnesses for your patience today as we postponed and then had a brief technical difficulty. We will jump right into our bill hearings with House Bill 294. This is a departmental bill from SDAT, and you can come on up and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilkins, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Bob Yeager. I'm the Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. I'm joined today by SDAT's Government Affairs Director, Josh Greenberg. SDAT is here today to express our support for House Bill 294, our departmental bill. HB 294 would authorize SDAT's Business Personal Property Division to request additional documentation from business entities that report less than $20,000 in business personal property. Business personal property consists of property owned by a business that is neither land nor a structure, usually furniture, fixtures, or equipment. State law requires businesses to report their business personal property annually to SDAT, including businesses that own no such property. Counties rely on these reports to collect local tax revenue. In 2022, SDAT sponsored legislation increasing the exemption threshold for reporting business personal property from $2,500 up to $2,500 or less to $20,000 or less. However, that legislation also included language prohibiting the department from requesting documentation to verify the accuracy of self-reported assessments. As a result, when a business reports a significant or atypical reduction in business personal property below the exemption threshold, SDAT is currently prohibited to confirm whether that reported amount is accurate. As part of its standard procedures, SDAT's Business Personal Property Division audits businesses that report a decrease of 40% or more in business personal property from one year to the next. These audits are intended to verify the accuracy of self-reported assessments and to ensure that counties continue to receive tax revenue based on the full amount of business personal property owned within their jurisdictions. The 2022 restriction has limited the department's ability to carry out this verification when reported amounts fall below the exemption threshold. If enacted, HB 294 would restore the department's ability to verify the accuracy of self-reported business personal property and to equitably assess these reports consistent with long-standing practices. We respectfully request a favorable report on HB 294, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Delegate Griffith with a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for bringing the bill. I guess my question is, these businesses are small businesses, and we already ask a lot of them and burden them quite a bit on multiple fronts. We just heard in the fiscal briefing that, we have little to no private sector job growth in the state. I guess my question is, why would we, and the governor talks about how he wants to grow the state and grow the private economy, why would we want to, especially right now, throw additional burdens on them?
So this, in practice, the way this would work is SDOT only does an audit when there's a significant decrease in the previous year. As we were working through the last year, we were hearing reports from counties that said that their business personal property tax, their revenue had been decreasing. So we looked and we found that over the last 3 years, businesses have increasingly elected this under $20,000 asset exemption. Even when the previous years, there was significantly more in assets. So, for example, if someone reported $400,000 consistently for several years, and then last year they reported $100,000 in assets, we would follow up with them to get documentation on what happened to the other $300,000 in assets. But now, if they said we've had $400,000 for several years, but this year we're going to put under $20,000, SDOT's prohibited from doing any sort of inquiry or reaching out to them. So those are really the only circumstances when we would reach out to people. We wouldn't be routinely auditing people who are declaring under 20. It would be more those that have a significant, usually 40% or more devaluation. And really, it's not an onerous burden. If the equipment actually has gone from $400,000 to under $20,000, there would be some sort of documentation. We sold the equipment, we closed branches, whatever that it was. But what we see is there's because of this sort of loophole, it allows people to increasingly just attest that they have under 20,000, and then SDOT can't do anything to investigate.
Is there a possibility you could put a provision in the bill where you would only be able to do this under $20,000 if there was a change of 40% or more, like a trigger versus just having the ability to do it whenever?
Absolutely. I have a version of that that's ready to go if that's something. So that's we could say that it allows when businesses report 20,000, it would authorize the Business Personal Property Division to request additional documentation when either the reported amount reflects a decrease of 40% or more over the previous year, or the reported amount is 40% or more below what is historically atypical for that type of business. And we could add that to those.
I think that's really fair. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Going to Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the bill. I'm really glad to see that the department is looking at how to just follow through on potentially fraudulent activity. And actually, my questions really build on my colleagues, but I'm going to come from a slightly different angle because I think you've mostly answered my question in your response to Delegate Griffith. So looking at the legislation, it is not bracketed out that a person's personal property is not subject to valuation if it's less than 20,000. So that still would be on the books. So when we're talking about those small businesses, they still, across the board, are not filing. It's simply in cases of where you've seen something suspicious and now you would just be allowed to follow through. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just the audit authority restoring that. If you look at the language, it would just be that one restoring that provision.
All right. Seeing no additional questions, thank you, Director Yeager. We are going to keep you up there for the next bill, House Bill 298, and this begins the hearing on House Bill 298.
Okay, once again, for the record, my name is Bob Yeager, Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. I'm joined today by SDOT's Director of Government Affairs, Josh Greenberg. SDOT's here to express its support for HB 298, our departmental bill. HB 298 would remove two existing statutory requirements. First, the first requirement that local assessment offices be located in the county seat. And second, the requirement that assessment supervisors reside in the county they serve. Under current law, requiring assessment officers to be co-located with county requiring assessment offices to be co-located with county administrative offices significantly limits available and cost-effective office space, particularly in smaller counties. In many cases, this restriction leaves the department with only one or two viable options, which may be inconveniently located for residents and may not meet operational or accessibility needs, in addition to higher parking costs in downtown areas. In addition, the residency requirement for assessment supervisors unnecessarily restricts the pool of qualified candidates. Experienced assessors with valuable institutional knowledge may be excluded solely due to residency, limiting the department's ability to select the most qualified leadership and maintain continuity. HB 298 directly addresses both of these challenges. Removing the county seat location requirement provides the department with greater flexibility to secure office space that is appropriately priced, operationally suitable, and accessible to the public. Eliminating residency requirements expands the pool of eligible supervisor candidates while preserving county's authority to propose and select their preferred leadership. If enacted, this legislation would allow the department to operate more efficiently, better serve local property owners, and ensure we are able to recruit and retain the strongest possible leadership. We respectfully request a favorable report on HB 298, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we've heard a similar version of this bill before, and we're very supportive of it. Just makes good fiscal sense. We're going through similar things right now with the standalone comptroller's office. We just merged the one between Hartford and Cecil into Hartford, and they've dedicated more resources. It's a bit more of a drive. I guess where I'm going, I think this is a good idea, but we've also seen agencies, for example, in Bel Air, where now they have a veterans state person, they have the DNR, and then they have the MVA all in one building. So it starts to come into, like, we're co-locating now. You can go to this one place. It's accessible by mass transit, right? That I see is more closer to perfect. So are you guys looking at possibly co-locating with some of these other agencies and services that are offered by the state so that people kind of know, hey, I can go here and I can get help on a multitude of issues?
We are. So Department of General Services Real Estate Division coordinates all the leases and initiates the searches for viable properties. We've seen them increasingly look at the needs of multiple agencies as they look at real estate. We are looking at how we can be in the same location where it's a central hub where it's accessible to people, but at the same time, in certain circumstances, when there's not enough of the right type of property, or where we have to pay to park and it's expensive, and there might be something that's more in like a commercial location where there's free parking for employees, free parking for everyone else. It's more of a case-by-case basis for what's going to be best for that county based on the size. But certainly we take into consideration, we want to be as centrally located as possible without sort of saying, well, there's only one building available here. It's not super convenient because it's in a downtown area, and the rent is going to be doubled if we renew the lease on this. So we really have no other options unless somebody builds another building in this area. So it would just give us a little more flexibility to find what's going to be best suited. But I think absolutely we want to coordinate with the other agencies to make it something of a one-stop shop for residents.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and always great to see you guys here. So my question, if it allows you to move out of the county seat, is there language that would require an office in each county or in Baltimore City? So could this be taken to extreme if this were passed and say like Somerset County, we're not going to maintain an office there for whatever reason?
That's not the intention of this at all. We would still maintain a separate location in each county. It would just it wouldn't necessarily be in that county seat. It could be in a town just outside, and that's where we've seen the opportunities. Did you want to add something?
I understand intention, but I don't think that's clearly written in here.
Sorry, the law states that SDAT is required to have an office in each and every county and Baltimore City. So this bill would not touch that language at all. It doesn't remove that requirement, but that requirement is in statute.
Do you see a chance of clarifying language? I understand it's the law, but if this is changing the law,
This wouldn't change that element of the law. I mean, if clarifying language like uncodified language in the bill saying that it's not the only problem is if.
Because like right now, we don't have a supervisor in every county, correct? Some counties share a supervisor.
Yeah, we have a separate supervisor in each
Like
county.
in commercial or something, like there's some levels where it's shared, like Wycomico and Worcester share certain
And we have
levels
area
of supervision.
supervisors that supervise multiple counties. The county supervisors all report to an area supervisor, and there's residential and there's commercial.
Okay, so there's an area supervisor typically for how many offices?
Well, so each and every county has an assessment supervisor who reports to an area supervisor. So there are 3 area supervisors that oversee each of the counties, and then we also have a commercial area supervisor who deals with the commercial area. This also would not change that paradigm. This is about where we locate the offices within each county, not about which counties we would be allowed to locate in.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no additional questions, this concludes the hearing on House Bill 298. Thank you so much for bringing these bills, and we will start the hearing on the next bill, Delegate Metzger, House Bill 127.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. House Bill 127, property tax credit for public safety officers and school employees. By the way, good afternoon again. For the record, I'm Delegate Rick Metzger from District 6, Baltimore County. I'm sponsor of House Bill 127. I'm not going to take up much of your time today because this bill has been sent back to the amendment office and to be retooled. What this bill is really designed for was volunteer fire companies and emergency medical technicians to address the shortage that we have in this area to get volunteers to work at the firehouses and that sort of thing. What I'm trying to do is to get a benefit and an incentive for volunteers to work at the volunteer firehouses and to assist them and give a tax credit on their property. It's not a cash outlay, but it's a tax credit, and it helps them and gives some incentive. And when it comes back from that, I'll be back, as they say.
Thank you so much, Delegate Metzger. We do have one question from Delegate Eversole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome back to Ways and Means. It's been a while.
Yes, sir.
It's nice
Yes,
to see
sir. It's always a pleasure.
you. 2 questions. First of all, this bill is specific to Baltimore County. Is that correct?
Yes
is
and
now.
no. I would say I would like to do it as a study, truthfully. You know, I didn't want to say that, but I'd really like to do a study just to see, make sure. I don't want to spend money if we don't have to, but it seems like this would be a good incentive and a great place to start in Baltimore County because I have 5 firehouses right in my district that are all volunteer.
And as written, it's an unfunded mandate, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no mandate, no mandate.
Thank you, Delegate. Seeing no other questions, this concludes our hearing on House Bill 127.
Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Be kind and smile.
Thank you, Delegate. All right, we will start the hearing on House Bill 90. Delegate Fair.
All right. It's intimidating in this room.
Welcome back, by the way. I would be remiss if I did not give you a warm welcome back to our departed member over to the Glee Committee. Welcome back. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Chair Wilkins, Vice Chair Feldmark, and esteemed members of my favorite committee that does not build things with Legos, the Ways and Means Committee. Delegate Chris Fair presenting House Bill 90, the culmination of a 9-month study by the Ways and Means Committee. The bill passed the committee and the House last year. As a reminder, it enables counties in the Baltimore City to create a differential property tax rate for ESTAT-defined subclasses of commercial real property. I'm bringing this MACO priority bill forward again on behalf of counties who have asked for this authority, honoring their repeated requests of the General Assembly to allow local control and flexibility to manage their evolving financial realities facing local governments that provide essential services for our constituents. Counties across our state have vastly different economies, each with unique challenges and opportunities. This bill acknowledges that reality and provides counties with similar flexibility as all 157 Maryland municipalities already have to set different property rates in their jurisdictions. This enabling tool may bolster counties' budgets as they deliver critical services in line with state policies. Additionally, any new tool for local authorities should have robust safeguards to ensure proper implementation. First and foremost, Marylanders' residential property rate cannot increase because of this bill. House Bill 90 only allows differential rates for commercial property subclasses. Further, it mandates a credit for the residential portion of any mixed-use property whose commercial square footage is subject to an increase. For small businesses, jurisdictions are empowered to give a tax credit for any rate increase to ensure that small businesses are protected and remain competitive. House Bill 90 also mandates that all revenue raised by the counties under the bill must go toward the two areas of government that connect all of our communities and improve everyone's quality of life: transportation and education. There is a cap to affirm the Maryland General Assembly's intent to grant limited authority, limits that do not exist in municipalities. The cap ensures that jurisdictions have adequate flexibility for important projects, but that the flexibility comes with constraints. If enabled, this bill will be a new tool for local jurisdictions to fund essential projects and improve government services for all residents, especially crucial in this challenging fiscal times we're in. Finally, this legislation is timely. As the state seeks to balance its budget, we have heard unequivocally from our counties that they need help balancing theirs, honoring mandates, and meeting increasing obligations and funding critical projects for each jurisdiction. While the Maryland General Assembly has wisely increased its cap from 3.2 to 3.3% on income, the fact remains that counties need a little more support and flexibility from us. HB 90 is the tool that helps with fairness and efficiency and is a critical lifeline to our local jurisdictions to maintain the high level of services that they provide. This pragmatic approach to local revenue acknowledges that our county officials are best positioned to make these rates decisions locally. We know one-size-fits-all financial policies generally do not work. Local officials know their communities best and are the people equipped to guide them through opportunities and challenges. Our job at the state level today is to remove that red tape and give flexibility and allow them to serve their jurisdictions most effectively. I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 90. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Fair, and thank you so much for bringing this bill.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see you again. Delegate Griffith with the first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill back. I appreciate it. Love that suit.
Thanks. Trying to keep it fancy.
Very good. So I guess my first question is, you talked about some of this revenue would go towards things like education, but don't businesses and, corporations already, they paid transfer taxes and impact fees already that goes towards education? Wouldn't this be a third hit against them?
Sure, but I would argue it actually isn't a third hit. It's actually an investment in their economic future as businesses. If the county chooses to implement a tax like this, as most business studies will show you from the United States Chamber of Commerce, that one of the #1 things that businesses look for when they choose where to move to is a well-educated workforce, and that they are willing to make investments into that to make sure that the school systems are some of the best in the country, so that they bring in some of the best people to live in their communities and then work in their businesses.
What I would argue, the fact that in our physical briefing shortly, just a little bit ago, they said that our private sector growth is flat. So clearly there's a lot of other factors they consider too, including the economic climate.
Maybe we're just not investing enough in education yet.
I think we're investing more than anybody else, so I think we got that covered. And that's my next question is, with all the economic burdens we have here, and obviously it's enabling, but you wouldn't have this bill unless somebody's looking to enable it. Yeah. When we are hitting businesses every which way, we're hitting their employees every which way. You just mentioned the legislation to increase the ability to raise income taxes on individuals at the local level. You don't think this is just one more hit to continue to drive businesses out of Maryland like we've seen?
So I think that one of the drivers that you've heard from communities in, especially like Montgomery County, is that they are struggling to compete with Northern Virginia because Northern Virginia enabled this exact tax in order to help fund their transportation program. And that is what Virginia's legislature has determined as the #1 driver for their economic development in Northern Virginia was their investments in transportation priorities. And Montgomery County is saying we are suffering in being able to bring new business to Montgomery County because Northern Virginia has this tax in place and is able to invest heavily into their infrastructure to make it a more equitable place for people to live. And so businesses are choosing to go to Northern Virginia over Montgomery County.
But would you say that's this is my last comment. Yeah. Is that a fair statement? Because it's not apples to apples, because sure, maybe Virginia has this ability at the county level, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of taxes and various burdens and regulation that Virginia doesn't have that allows them to maybe do something like this where they're not facing all the other headwinds that companies in Maryland have to face. And so one of the reasons I would say Montgomery County may not be successful fighting Virginia is they may not have this, but there's lots of other things that they are not competitive on beyond this. Would you agree that there's lots of taxes and regulations Virginia, we have that Virginia doesn't?
So I would start by saying that what I said is a fair statement because I said it and that's my last name, it's already there. But the second I would say is simply that when you're talking about taxes are very complex in each community, in each state. There are a lot of township and municipality taxes that exist in Virginia that do not exist in Maryland, and a lot of statewide taxes that exist in Maryland that do not exist in Virginia. And so when you have to look at the entire pie when you're comparing apples to apples. What I'm pointing out is that in Northern Virginia, they chose to make a targeted investment into transportation. This bill actually prescribes that exact same scenario to make proper investments into transportation, as their economic development folks have pointed out that those investments in transportation actually led to a booming economy that you're now seeing in Northern Virginia. But thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you too, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll go to Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Delegate Fair, for bringing the bill. I certainly understand where you're coming from with this. I did want to Delegate Griffith's point, if you're looking at the testimony that was provided, particularly by Montgomery County, just reading from their testimony that Montgomery County already has a reputation for, this is from their Chamber of Commerce, has a reputation for high taxes and compares unfavorably to neighboring Virginia in terms of competitiveness, while proponents note that Northern Virginia uses differential property tax rates to fund infrastructure. Virginia's overall tax structure remains far more competitive for businesses, standing in sharp contrast to jurisdictions like Montgomery County. Providing the additional taxing authority proposed in House Bill 90 would further weaken Maryland's competitive position, making it more difficult to foster economic growth, create jobs, attract and retain businesses. Mm-hmm. So I think it kind of sums up the conversation a little bit that you just had. However, we already rank so low in competitiveness as far as attracting businesses and retaining businesses. Is there overall concern with that? And then when you're talking that we'll go to education and transportation, is it going to capital operating, can use it for whichever they like, as far as particularly around the schools?
Yeah, so I will start by answering your question and saying that, again, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce would inherently disagree with Montgomery County's Chamber of Commerce's assessment. They would argue that the investment in education and transportation are the #1 and #2 issues that businesses across our country have identified as the key aspects for where they're looking to invest in their businesses right now. Montgomery County would share with you that they have not been able to invest in the necessary infrastructure that they need in order to be a competitor when it comes to Northern Virginia. So I would just simply push back and say that I believe that, yes, we need a diversified taxing structure, and yes, we need to show that taxpayer dollars are being effectively spent, but Montgomery County is a massively complex jurisdiction with over 1 million residents, and so we need to be able to figure out how to effectively invest in those communities. In our community, in Frederick County, we have different issues. We don't have 1 million residents, for one, but two, we have a different focuses that we could be utilizing these differential property tax rates to focus on. For example, we could be looking at areas that that are in our upcoming data center discussion. We could be having those discussions and talking about how we can be investing better in those. But to answer your second question, is really the bill prescribes very specifically how all of this will work. So if the county decides, and remember, this the county executive will propose it, the county council will approve it, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for public input as they're going through that process to be able to establish if they want to try a different property tax rate for their commercial properties. If it goes countywide, that money will be used towards education. If they lay a special overlay on top, what's called a special taxing district on top of a certain area, that money will go towards their transportation portfolio.
Okay, and then have you considered making it also like a ballot initiative or a ballot approval where the voters would have to approve any kind of rate changes or hike?
We have not considered that because generally speaking, the General Assembly has made these determinations and allowed, and again, it's as it being only enabling legislation, it would just simply go back to the counties and the local jurisdictions where voters have the ability to have the most impact and be able to have the most direct conversation with their elected officials about what is in the interest of their community.
Yeah, there are some that have the local jurisdictions that it has to be approved any kind of ballot initiative, not a statewide, but a local one.
Sure.
Which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Delegate.
Delegate Roberson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and apologies for being late to the party. And you might have already answered this, especially with this line of questioning that Delegate Griffith and Delegate Miller were going down. But in particular, I want to focus more on the education side than the transportation side, as Delegate Miller was pointing out. But one question that I don't know if they brought this to you, AOBA in particular, they raised with me was a concern that, and I know you mentioned this to Delegate Griffith, just that, education is a key part of where you want businesses to be and all of that. And if they've raised this with you, just the concerns of can they just separate it out if you were willing. I don't know if they presented an amendment to you, but they were wondering if they could separate out where the taxes went only towards transportation and not necessarily education in particular, noting that, the businesses do use the transportation infrastructure around their businesses, but not necessarily the education pieces. So just wanted your thoughts, if they've even spoken to you about that, just wanted an opportunity for you to raise thoughts around that, as well as whether an amendment would be received or not, if you were willing to discuss that.
Yeah, so they have not reached out to discuss that idea with my office, at least. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I'll say that they have not reached out to me to speak to me about that idea. I will say that education impacts all of us equally, and so that's why when we look at like a countywide jurisdictional rate increase, we said that would go towards education versus that more targeted specific overlay question, and that would go towards transportation. And I will mention that again, as I presented in my testimony, that when a municipality all 157 municipalities around the state already have this authority, and they can set unlimited numbers of subclasses of commercial property, they can set those rates wherever they want, and they can spend that money however they want. And so this gives a very limited, very targeted set of tools to the county that have a lot of guardrails inside of it for the state to make sure that we are prescribing an authority and allowing them to enable authority, but making sure that we put some pretty big protections in place for businesses as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. If there are no further questions, this concludes the hearing on House Bill 90. Delegate Fair, we're going to keep you up there for the next bill. House Bill 176.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How are you?
I knew you couldn't. I knew you couldn't. I knew you couldn't.
Oh, they have officially turned over the zoo here. All right. Now, Mr. Chair, thank you, and esteemed members of my favorite committee that does not sing in a club, members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I am Delegate Chris Fair presenting House Bill 176. As required by the Maryland Constitution, each property in Maryland must be assessed every 3 years. Considering that there are over 2 million unique properties in Maryland, this requirement creates great strain on dwindling resources and staff at the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. With the constant trickle of new properties to assess, lengthy appeals processes, new legislative directives, and a significant decrease in staff, these combined challenges have quickly become unmanageable for the department. As the department will tell you, it needs additional tools to carry out its mission with more efficiency and accuracy. Responsive to these challenges, HB 176 expands on a program that already exists in 9 counties. It allows SSTAT to harness common technology, Geographic Information System visualizations, also known as GIS, overlaid on aerial photography in its assessment process for all jurisdictions. This guarantees that each property gets a current, fair, and balanced assessment within the constitutionally mandated timeline, all without burdening homeowners' privacy and property rights, with an assessor showing up at their property and saving the department money and staff time. A real win-win. The use of oblique aerial photography, an example of which can be found in my written testimony, allows assessors to quickly and accurately measure a building's footprint without having to be physically on site. Simply implementing this technique increases the total statewide assessable real property base to up to $1.25 billion, leading to $1.4 million in increased revenue for the state and $15 million to local jurisdictions annually. These gains reflect how using technology to increase efficiency can yield significant benefits to the state, especially in trying fiscal times. For the last 2 years, the House passed this bill, but it stalled in the Senate over well-intentioned but unfounded privacy concerns related to the photography. So it's important to mention that these photographs are taken by airplanes at high altitudes for assessment purposes only. Homeowners do not need to worry about their privacy being invaded or their security compromised because the photos cannot depict details inside a building. Privacy is actually enhanced by ensuring that the property assessor does not have to show up on site at your home once every 3 years. Additionally, the storage provision of this bill will help create and maintain an invaluable resource for both SSTAT and our residents. In real time, SSTAT will be able to provide guidance and imagery related to their current assessment process for a given property and be able to more transparently communicate the reasoning for their assessment value with a given resident. I urge the Ways and Means Committee to give our employees at SSTAT the tools they need to do their work and use technology to the benefit of us all. Please give HB 176 a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. We have a few questions. Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Fair, we had sort of a briefing on this, and one of the things that I had asked about is the use of AI change analysis. Mm-hmm. Would what you're proposing allow for that? Would that be a part of it? And is there any way that you're letting people know that this has been used or AI would have been used for the assessment piece?
So I usually pride myself in having the answer to almost every question that I get asked, but that is a question beyond my scope. I look to the director to see if he maybe has some input on this. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, may I have a technical question?
Would you like to bring him up?
Thank you.
Sure.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Mr. Director, again to the desk.
Yes. As we spoke about last week, Delegate, this would not be used with sort of an AI system that you were describing. That's not something that we currently use. It would be used just to get a better view of the property, to be able to, take measurements, see the size of the property, see new construction, identify specific elements. It wouldn't be something that an artificial intelligence system would analyze or evaluate in any way.
Do you see the future coming with that, though, or coming with whatever you're using to, like, are you having someone put eyes on each individual thing and doing it by human sight? Like right now, is that what the bill is? And then, but can you see where that would, the programs that you're using would then develop into using an AI component? I mean, as a lot of them already do.
So you have to maintain an actual visual photograph of the property itself. It is required by the legislation that's being prescribed here that they not only have a photograph that they've taken of the property, and it has to be a real photograph taken using satellite imagery, so either overhead plane, satellite. They have to take that physical photograph, and then it is superimposed on software that then is able to calculate the frontage of the property itself to be able to calculate the size of the property. I got it?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this bill back again. Quick question about assessments. So is the only thing that's assessed is the size of the building? Is a home assessed in the same way, say, a picnic pavilion would be assessed? And how can you differentiate the two of those from an aerial photo, what's in the building, what the actual value of the building is versus just something square footage from the sky?
Yep. So I'm going to defer to the director on exactly what the process is for a picnic, for a picnic pavilion, but go ahead.
So, sure. So I think that would be the starting point where you would identify a new piece of construction. We would look at permits. We would look at what the details are behind that construction to determine which category it falls into, whether it's residential, commercial, something that would determine the evaluation method that we would use. But I can get you more details about that process afterward if you'd like. It would be part of the assessment process. So this tool would be another tool in our toolbox to identify properties, to measure them, and then our assessors would evaluate what that structure is, what its value is based on similar properties. If that answers your question.
And a quick example of how this is beneficial to everyone is that the property itself, somebody builds, whether they pulled permits or not, they build an additional property on their property, and then when that property is built, they never file any paperwork, and so SDAT is unaware of the property. And then it can go as far as the homeowner actually selling the property to another individual. And then 10 years down the road, SDAT does a formal on-site evaluation of the property, identifies a whole new structure on the property, and says, oh, this is part of your real property by the state constitution. We have to now increase your property assessment because of this new property that we just found. And they go, whoa, this has been here for well over a decade. Why am I getting suddenly charged? So that's where this efficiency part is so important, that we're able to create effective and accurate and efficient responses that are real assessments of property instead of just guessing until we actually can visit on site.
Again, I'm just going back to the point of these are some things that probably need feet on the ground, eyes on, because there's so much more than just the square footage of the property from the sky.
If I may, one of the features of this that's a benefit is that it's not, there's overhead photography currently, but if this is at an angle, so we're able to see whether this is, like you said, a picnic pavilion where you're just seeing the roof from overhead, you can see from the sides, you can see if this is a multi-story building, if it's enclosed, if it's open on the side. So that helps us better identify what these structures are. I think that's one of the main features of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you for the bill. And I think you had something similar last year. One of the other solutions here, why don't you just expand the window of time for which the assessments can be done? Like, let's say move it from 3 years to 5 years. Wouldn't that allow the agency to have the resources to conduct them all and be accurate?
I think, well, thank you for the question, Delegate. And I will just say, it still doesn't change the number of properties, 2 million unique properties that we're looking at, even spread out over 5 years, with a staff that has been cut repeatedly in the previous administration down to whatever numbers it currently sits at, is a tall order for any organization to take on. And so the main problem that they will point out is not, oh, we need more time. They just say there's more efficient ways to do this. We see it with the 9 counties that have already implemented it through legislation that we've considered in the past. And we can actually maintain and handle not just the 2 million that currently exists, but also all the new properties that are coming online in the years to follow.
Okay, and then the second question is, this will probably be instituted by a vendor, is that accurate?
It'll be, so they have a third-party vendor, yes, that they contract with.
And then does this legislation in any way prescribe that vendor, or is it open bid process? Because I know there's a preferred one that's being used by some of the counties that are already doing it.
And I might pull the director, I feel like I'm making him jump up and down here nonstop, but go ahead.
Bring him on.
So we would check with our procurement if it would, right now, I think there is a current vendor that would be expanded to these other counties. We would check with our procurement team to make sure that there wasn't a rule that would trigger a new RFP that would allow other vendors to be considered for this process, to make sure that the price and all that is to the benefit of the state.
Okay, and then my last part, thank you for indulging me here. but it's my understanding that GIS information for the entire globe is currently done by NASA. In other words, they've photographed the entire world. Why can't we just use those files? Why do we have to go and duplicate that with a vendor?
So one, they don't do it every day, and so this is actual third parties, organizations that go up and fly high-level airplanes over the properties and take very specific angled photographs. Those angles are what go into the software and use some kind of trigonometry to then calculate the exact frontage of the property so that they can calculate the proper size of the property for assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate.
Thank you. Delegate Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate. Mr. Director, come on back up. I might need you for this.
I don't appreciate your lack of
your
lack of confidence in me here, Delegate.
Can't answer it yet.
It's a quick question. It's more a technical question, though. So, there was mentioned earlier that you might use, when you do the assessments, you'll get the pictures, you'll look at permitting and things. My question is about enforcement on permitting. Do you currently, in your assessment process, even in the physical inspection, but certainly in this one, are you telling localities if there's like a permit violation, or just a curiosity?
I don't believe we do. No, that's not, we get the information about new construction. Certain counties don't have permitting requirements. We rely on the jurisdiction to give us those permitting information, but we don't police it, whether, with the jurisdiction, whether or not people are pulling permits for construction. We are looking at terms of how they increase the value of the property. So if we find a property that's got a significant structure that we identified through this photography, we would start the process of just, determine the appropriate assessment and the impact on the value of the property.
Thank you so much. And so, Delegate, final question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
The intent of the legislation would not be to implement that policing. Is that correct?
No, it would not. The legislation doesn't consider that.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate, and thank you, Mr. Director, for coming up and pinch hitting a little bit there. If there are no further questions, that will conclude the hearing on House Bill 176, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Next up, we have House Bill 78, sponsors Delegate Stewart. Welcome to Ways and Means, sir. Yes, please.
Bill, welcome to come on up. Cool. All right, looks like, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, let me say, Mr. Chair, well-deserved, long overdue, finally. I saw acting Vice Chair Hornberger stepped out, so I couldn't make that joke. Members of the committee, I am Delegate Von Stewart. This is House Bill 78. So I think the last bill actually really illustrated something pretty simple about the way our property tax system works, which is that if you extend your house, if you make improvements to your house, you pay more in taxes. And if you fix up a vacant row home, you pay more in taxes. If you build apartments that people need to live in near transit, you pay more in taxes. If you open up a business and you improve your storefront so it's more attractive to customers, you pay more taxes. But if you leave a valuable downtown parcel vacant for 20 years, you pay less. And if you turn a half a block into a surface parking lot, you pay less. And if you speculate on land and you do nothing with it whatsoever, you pay less. So that's not neutral. That's not accidental. That's a policy choice that we're making. Right now, our property tax system quietly punishes people who build things, and it rewards people who sit on things. And so House Bill 78 is designed to fix that. Our property tax system right now quietly features two things in one: a land tax and a building tax, but it bunches them up together. There's a fairer way to do this that many other jurisdictions in the country have tried that splits those two things, and it allows our counties and our cities to tax building things, the improvements to the land, what we want, less than the land itself. And the simple reason for this is because we want to incentivize people to improve land. We don't want to disincentivize that. So I know that heuristically, I'll address the elephant in the room. You've got a progressive Democrat standing up here. If you look at your bill file, you'll see all sorts of left-leaning groups and unions support this bill, and you'll see lots of industry-related groups and chambers of commerce say they don't like the bill. And so heuristically, naturally, oh, and the bill also has the word tax in it. So naturally, you're going to probably sit there and assume like, oh man, this must be some kind of radical, wacky, left-wing idea. Far from it. This is something that libertarian-leaning groups, Republicans, have long supported. In fact, one of the champions in Pennsylvania was then mayor and later senator and president for Club for Growth, Pat Toomey. Really revolutionized this idea in Pennsylvania and led to the renaissance of several small Pennsylvania cities like Harrisburg. I would also note that the General Assembly passed this exact bill unanimously in 1994. And it was vetoed by Governor William Donner Schaefer. So who voted for it? Well, Chris Van Hollen voted for it. Peter Franchot voted for it. Kumar Barve, our great PSC chairman, voted for it. But so did Bob Ehrlich. So did Ellen Sauerbrei, who some names from yesteryear that y'all might remember. So this is not necessarily a cut and dry, left-leaning, here comes Vaughn with a bill to punish businesses. What we're really trying to do here is reshift our tax system in a fairer way, not about partisanship, not about ideology, but simply based on what's worked in other places. So I want to address a few things from what you'll hear from the opponents and what you'll read in the bill file just quickly. And I of course, love Ms. Graff, and I love Mr. Ballantyne, and all of us actually have the same goal. We want to see more stuff built. I want stuff to be built in Maryland. I want more homes. I want more businesses. We have the same goal, and I think we disagree a little bit about what this bill should look like to get there, but I respect them immensely. I just want to go down through a few points they made to make sure that we're all on the same page. I also don't really like Mr. Grayson Wiggins. I just wanted to point that out. First of all, they mentioned that there's no evidence that this works. That's false. So I'm going to bore you guys with a bibliography real fast. So there's a study from Plassman and Tidman from 2000. I can send you guys the link, which studied 15 Pennsylvania cities using this split rate taxation model versus over 200 that didn't. And they found that cities using split rate taxes issued significantly more building permits. Oates and Schwab in 1997 found that when Pittsburgh sharply cut the tax on buildings relative to land in 1979, construction activity increased, and the improvement tax rate was the key driver of that investment behavior. Banzaf and Lavery in 2010 in the Journal of Urban Economics found that split rate taxation increases the capital to land ratio, meaning more buildings per acre, and is associated therefore with more housing units and denser development. And most recently, this guy named Hansen, I don't know these people, I'm just calling them by their last name, we're not on first name basis, but this guy named Hansen in 2022 in the Public Finance Review, and again, I can send this all to y'all, found that after adopting split rate taxation, cities saw an immediate increase in business establishments. Wouldn't that be nice in Maryland for a change, to have more housing and more businesses? The second point that the opponents mentioned that is, I think, a little bit misleading is that the Pittsburgh experiment with this proved that this whole split rate taxation thing failed. That's not quite true. So Pittsburgh did adopt this in the 70s, and they ultimately ended up jettisoning it because the voters revolted. But that's not because of the split rate taxation model itself. What happened is that they had a faulty assessment. They had assessment shock, where the assessments themselves were flawed, and a lot of people's tax bills went up, and people were pissed. And so they ended up jettisoning the whole, they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. But a lot of studies of Pittsburgh during that time found that part of Pittsburgh's renaissance after all these, company towns went bankrupt was partly associated with their experimentation with a land value tax. Third, the opponents will probably tell you this is going to cause massive tax hikes and drive people out and yada, yada. I will actually say this is their best point, which is that if counties don't do this correctly, and we're giving counties a lot of authority to set these rates appropriately, if they don't do it correctly, they could actually screw this up. They could, for example, make the tax even higher on improvements. This bill is agnostic on what the rates are. So they could set it in all sorts of ways. So, MACO obviously supports it, and we're giving them a lot of power. But what I'll say to the opponents on this point is fair. if they want to work with me to hem this in a little bit and to put a few more controls on it, so counties, sorry, Mako, have a little bit less authority to set the rates, but we can put them in the direction they need to go to make sure this doesn't overburden neighborhoods and drive businesses out and all these scary things, that's a conversation that I'm more than willing to have. Finally, let's talk about, maybe not finally, but next let's talk about the fiscal note. There's like this massive fiscal note associated with the bill. SStat says they had to like spend all this money. I just want to note that assumes that it's like an absolute statewide build out immediately. So the assumption in the fiscal note is that they have to spend like $39 million of all this IT and tech stuff. I'm sure that's true, but this is not going to be something that overnight every county and jurisdiction in the state is experimenting with this. This is going to be county by county. Every county is going to be debating this. Every county has its own authority. If they don't want this, they don't have to do it. And I think that phased-in approach, which is a lot more kind of pilot-esque, is going to make sure that we cut that SStat cost immeasurably. But again, happy to talk to SStat if we need to make this more explicitly a pilot to make sure their burden goes down and the fiscal note goes down. I'm more than happy to do that. What I do want to note, though, is that SStat's expenses are already reimbursed by the counties. So it's not general fund revenue. Obviously, we're kind of like broke right now. I think this committee probably realizes that. The counties actually reimburse SStat for those expenses. So that's just a decision the county would have to make. If they wanted to go ahead and go with this system, they may have to pay a little bit extra to SStat, but probably the juice is worth the squeeze based on all the evidence that I've laid out. And then finally, I will wrap up here. I mean, I think this bill is a straightforward way to encourage housing near jobs and transit without using subsidies. We can reduce the tax penalty on renovation and redevelopment. We can discourage land speculation that drives up housing prices. We can strengthen downtowns, places like Baltimore City and Hagerstown and other places without any new spending. And we can reward people fundamentally who build things instead of people who sit on things. And we do that all while respecting local choice. So this is not a tax increase. This is not a mandate. This is not a gamble. It's just a tool. And it's one that crosses ideological lines. It's one that Maryland has seriously considered and actually passed unanimously before. And it's one that gives local governments a smarter way to align incentives with the public good. So I urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Delegate, for that comprehensive outline. Hanson is probably the member of a band that I've heard of somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Bob, Mr. Chair. Bob.
Yes, indeed. We're going to, real quickly, this is our first hearing where we've had witnesses or people testifying. So just to give a quick rundown, those of you who've been on the committee before, and some of you who are new, and also to the guests for politeness, we will go through the witnesses who are here in person and favorable first, 2 minutes each. We'll call you at the end to try to sum up if you're not there. Then we will go to the folks who are unfavorable, who are in person, in deference to the fact that they have arrived. And then after that, we'll turn to our virtual guests to testify as well. We have 4 people at the desk. I'm hoping one of them is Ben Lynn.
Do we have a Ben?
Or not.
Is that you?
Oh, he's virtual?
Oh, he's virtual.
I have him in person. Should I switch? Okay, well, while they're sorting that out, we'll go to Vanessa Beck. Do I have a list that's meaningful? Yes, someone nodded their head at the desk. Great news. Vanessa, please, 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, members of the committee, for this opportunity to testify. I'm testifying on behalf of our community group, Baltimore Thrive, and we urge a favorable report on this important legislation. HB 78 is fundamentally a bill about parity and local authority. Municipalities in Maryland already possess the authority to establish separate tax rates for land and improvements. So this bill simply extends that same authority to Maryland counties and Baltimore City, ensuring that all local governments have equal access to this proven fiscal tool. Granting this authority does not mandate any tax change. It merely empowers local jurisdictions to make decisions that best meet their economic and housing needs. This authority would allow cities and counties to reduce taxes on buildings and improvements while offsetting the revenue by modestly increasing the tax rate on land. And by shifting the tax burden away from productive investment and onto underutilized land, local governments can encourage development, rehabilitation, and job creation without decreasing overall tax revenue. And for Baltimore City in particular, this policy offers a direct way to address chronic challenges such as vacant lots, abandoned properties, lack of housing affordability, and speculative landholding. Under the current system, owners who allow land to sit vacant often pay significantly less in taxes than homeowners and businesses and other residents do who invest in maintaining and improving their properties. So HB 78 would help to correct this imbalance by, that's 2 minutes.
You can just give us a summary sentence, please.
Yes. So HB 78 provides Maryland's government with a flexible, locally controlled tool to promote affordability, opportunity, and fairness. It levels the playing field between jurisdictions, supports economic growth without raising overall taxes and without reducing revenue. So we're favorable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I have Rick Rybeck. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Rick Rybeck. I'm an attorney with a master's degree in real estate and urban development. I'm testifying in support of House Bill 78 introduced by Delegate Vaughn Stewart. The purpose of this legislation is to provide Maryland counties and Baltimore City with the same power to set property tax rates as is now provided to most municipalities pursuant to Maryland Code Title 6, Section 303. HB 78 amends Maryland Code Title 6, Section 302, thereby allowing counties in Baltimore to set different tax rates on privately created building values and publicly created land values. There is no reason to deny counties in Baltimore taxing powers already delegated to municipalities. If only for fairness and parity, House Bill 78 should be enacted into law. Why might a community want to tax improvement values and land values at different rates? Well, real estate rents and prices are too high. A tax on the value of buildings reduces construction and makes prices go up even more. Reducing the tax rate on buildings would be a universal tax abatement, making all buildings more affordable. The value of land reflects the value of public goods and services available to site. A tax on land value merely returns to the community value that the community has created in the first place. Surprisingly, taxing land values reduces land prices because profits from land speculation are reduced. Land speculation produces nothing of value, so there's no harm discouraging it. Without new spending, without any revenue loss, some communities have reduced the tax on buildings while increasing the return of community-created land values. This tax shift makes both buildings and land more affordable. HB 78 does not mandate reform. It simply allows counties in Baltimore to enhance employment, affordability, and economic vitality. I urge your support.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have Phil Scherer. Scherer.
That's me.
Tell me how to say it right.
Scherer.
Good, thank you.
It's a good German last name. Hello, I'm Phil Scherer. I'm speaking today in support of House Bill 78 on behalf of Baltimoreans for People-Oriented Places. We advocate for transportation and land use policies that support the development of prosperous places designed for people in Baltimore City and the surrounding counties. We want to give local communities the tools to develop smart policy that encourage building places people want to be. One of the strongest tools in this toolbox is a land value tax. This bill, HB 78, is a crucial first step piece to enable Baltimore City and Maryland's counties to shift to a system that discourages land speculation and encourages more productive use of land. The benefits of this change are overwhelmingly received by those who are invested and embedded in our communities, those who maintain homes and businesses, as opposed to land speculators or for vacant and underutilized properties would lose out. Places with efficient use of land are both more economically prosperous and more pleasant to live and work in. I happen to live in Howard County, so I'll use a Howard County example. Old Ellicott City is a walkable, dense area designed for people that makes good use of the available land. It happened to be hemmed in via geography rather than tax policy, but the effect is the same. Compare it to the US 40 commercial corridor. People come from across the state just to walk around Old Ellicott City. Nobody comes to US 40 to enjoy the ambiance. Property taxes. Our current system encourages more US 40s. A land value tax would encourage more Old Ellicott cities. Thank you for your time. We hope you issue a favorable report on HB 78.
Thank you. An awkward stage here. I have three guests, three people listed. The gentleman on the right, who I actually kind of know, it didn't sign up. Just here for support today.
I'm with Vanessa, so
Okay, so just here for support to answer questions. Yep. Thank you very much. That concludes your panel. We will now move to some unfavorables, if you will. I have oh yeah, how about that? How about that? I don't do this often. Does anyone, I didn't see, oh, I do have one. Can you all come back? I'm sorry, we need to see if there are questions for the panel. Thanks a lot. Delegate Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Stewart, for bringing this bill. You know how I feel about this bill. Very, very supportive. I did want to put one clarification on the record. I do believe that that $35 million that SDOT is talking about is a systemic change for the IT. We did a summer study on my local bill over the summer, and in the write-up, thank you to our counsel, Stan Ward, I think it said that it was going to cost that even for just Baltimore to do it. My question is for Ms. Beck. Ms. Beck, you recall on May the 19th, we had a town hall at Morgan State University, myself and Councilman Blanchard of the 11th District, Baltimore City, where we were able to bring about 100 people out to talk about this. Can you just give the committee a little bit of your assessment of how that event went and what was some of the sentiment from the people?
Yeah, I think the turnout was greater than we expected. And many people expressed that they felt they had been paying too much in taxes, didn't really kind of understand why that might be. And there were, many reports from people on, like, why don't we have a grocery store? Like, why? And so I feel like the forum really helped people connect the dots and kind of become a little, understand a little more how the kind of current property tax that is backwards sort of has a negative effect, and is rewarding the people who are creating blight in their neighborhoods. So many people complained about blight, and it kind of has shifted the burden of the property tax, onto the regular everyday people.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, and I think that's what I just wanted y'all to hear, folks, is that in Baltimore, this is really a major issue. Delegates talked about at the beginning of his testimony how certain people can speculate, how folks can hold on to property, and if you improve your property, if you're doing things to make the city better or your community better or your neighborhood better, you are perpetually paying more, you're perpetually taxed in a negative way. But those who are bad actors or folks who are not having that same intent, they actually benefit under our current system, and frankly, that's unacceptable for many of our residents, and they displayed that in that town hall. Thank you so much, Delegate. Thank you, Ms. Beck, for your participation as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Delegate, for your leadership on this issue. Just wanted to say, especially on this issue of fairness, I think fundamentally, no matter what you think of this issue, whether you're persuaded by our panel or not, I think the idea that Baltimore is the only city in the state that can't already do this is just fundamentally unfair.
And I think Delegate Young wanted to finish with, isn't that so, at the end of his.
He tried. I think I heard it. He whispered it.
Thank you. And now, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. We will bring up as many of the folks who are testifying unfavorable as we can. There are 5 chairs, and I have 6 people. If you want to squeeze a chair and just trade out, that's okay with me. Mike O'Halloran, Alexander Bushell, Grayson Wiggins, Hugo Cantu, Tom Ballantyne, and Lori Graff. As might have been expected, the snow apparently has diminished you by 1/6, so we're in perfect shape here. We'll start off with Michael Halloran. 2 minutes, please.
Mike is caught in the snow, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and you are?
Grayson Wiggins.
Okay, and you're representing the same organization as he is?
No, sir. I'm with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, so we're going to move on then? Is that the idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Alexander Bushell. Thank you, sir.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah, you're up.
Your Honor.
I don't know if you're in alphabetical order or just order of height, but you're next.
Sounds good. My name's Alex Bushell. I'm an attorney in Baltimore who focuses my practice mainly on real property tax assessment and exemption work. I got some problems with this in terms of how it's going to reverberate throughout the tax property article. You know, our Constitution requires uniform taxation and assessment. And the assessment side of this is going to be incredibly arbitrary and unscientific. From talking to valuation professionals and assessors who do this, the breakout you see maybe on your assessment notice is pretty much arbitrary. And the other thing is I think this misdiagnoses a problem we're all concerned about. I'm a Baltimorean. Vacant lots. I've read a lot of the studies that are pushing this idea of a land tax, and I think they miss the point. For a lot of these lots, like they had an example in one of these studies about some properties in Druid Hill, where there were 7 lots next to each other that were vacant, the townhomes long torn down. And they claimed, look, they're assessed for $1,000 and no one's doing anything with them. They're under assessed. Well, they're probably over assessed. The properties taxes are $25 a year. Nobody has paid them from the research I could do in years. The owners, in many cases, I suspect are dead. The heirs either don't know they own the land or don't care because the land is essentially worthless. The problem is, and they don't sell at tax sale because nobody wants them. No one's going to be able to redeem them from whoever owns them if you could even track them down. And that's really a huge problem, is how to get good title, maybe to the city, and this isn't my field, where they can get these sort of assemblages together and get them to somebody who could do something with them. The fact that the taxes aren't being paid, you can make the rate tax them $1 million a year. They're not going to pay it. They're not paying less than 25 a year. So that's what I think we really need to address is demand in Baltimore City, and this doesn't do it, and it's going to be really hard to administer for SDAT and create a ton of appeals for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Grayson Wiggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your help earlier.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Grayson Wiggins here on behalf of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. First, I want to say I always appreciate my good friend Delegate Stewart's enthusiasm at his bill hearings. He and I have spent a lot of nights debating housing policy, discussing housing policy, and I think he knows that we at the Chamber share his desire to create more housing, more development, and more economic growth in the state of Maryland. That said, I think this bill runs into 3 problems. First, I believe my good friend presupposes that counties will lower the tax rate. But in fact, the language in the bill doesn't require that. It allows them to raise it. And time again, we have seen counties enact policies that have limited housing construction, limited development, and limited economic growth here in the state of Maryland. Additionally, I think it introduces volatility into what is already a very volatile development environment in the state of Maryland. When I talk to builders, they continue to struggle with delays in permitting processes, tax rates, and I think this is just another variable that they will have to deal with and be wary of when they decide whether they're going to build here or somewhere like Northern Virginia. And then third, I'm glad that he raised the Pennsylvania comparison. And I think this goes back to that apples to apples discussion. Pennsylvania is in the process of slashing their corporate tax rate from 9.99% to 4.99% by 2031. It's already dropped 2% since they enacted that change, down to 7.99%. And so, you know, if the committee wants to look at this bill from the perspective of its impact in Pennsylvania, we would welcome a discussion that couples it with a reduction in the corporate income tax rate, but I venture a guess that that would not be well received. And so without that change, we are concerned that the positive impact that may have been seen in Pennsylvania would not be seen here, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Hugo Cantu.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Hugo Cantu with the Apartment and Office Building Association. We represent 23 million square feet of commercial office space and about 133,000 apartment units between Montgomery and Prince George's County. And, you know, to reiterate that this bill, while it's a split rate tax, it's not just a land value tax, it's effectively a property tax increase. And one thing I do want to just disagree with is that the proposer of the bill mentions that this punishes those that are holding on to land, or the ones that are holding on to land are actually just benefiting. But for a multifamily development project, 40% of the cost of building that multifamily building is just tied up in government regulation, 40% of the project. So when we're talking about affordable housing and the affordable housing crisis, the last thing we need to do is provide additional regulatory instability, political infeasibility, just issues that are going to compound on top of themselves. And that's just the multifamily side. For commercial, we're talking about commercial vacancy rates in Montgomery County of 18.6 for commercial office. Prince George's County is 14. Howard County, Baltimore City, they have around 13. So Frederick's the lowest, they're at 9. So what you're seeing is folks pushing a narrative that that the winners here are the ones that can't do anything and they just sit, and that's just not the case here. On top of that, your budgetary crisis, I don't think adding additional requirements to SDAT is going to follow the budget plan of spending cuts. For those reasons, AOBA urges unfavorable report.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Tom Ballantyne.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tom Ballantyne on behalf of NAIOP Maryland. We're a commercial real estate trade association here in opposition to House Bill 78. 100 East Pratt Street in Baltimore is one of several high-profile buildings in default on its real estate loan. 10 years ago, this building sold for $187 million. Today, it's assessed at $32 million. The 2 acres of land it sits on are assessed at $27 million. The proponents, the 693,000 square foot office building is mostly vacant. The proponents of a land value tax and the theory of land value tax would argue that the land of this building should be taxed at 4 to 5 times the rate of improvements. This implies a tax of $8 to $11 per 100 of assessed land value. That's above the 2.24 per 100. That's the uniform tax applied to all buildings in Baltimore City. This building has high vacancy, no income, and no prospect of paying a land tax. This is one example, but there are 13 submarkets in Maryland where office vacancies are higher than 20%. The land value tax is based on a 19th century theory that assumes real estate value should be based on its unrealized maximum development potential. It's a sharp departure from Maryland's longstanding approach that relies on cash flows from operations, comparable sales to determine uniform assessments. We think other factors that determine development feasibility, such as zoning, environmental features, infrastructure capacity, market demand, are way more influential than the land value tax will be. And underestimating these factors, I think, creates some unrealistic expectations for the results. These factors were apparently influential in several states, including Connecticut, Michigan, Washington, D.C., recently looking at land value tax proposals and rejecting them. For those reasons, we respectfully request your unfavorable report.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. And finally, we have Lori Graff.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lori Graff. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Building Industry Association. We are a trade association in the residential construction world. There's no doubt we need more housing, and I do appreciate the sponsor. He certainly has been working hard to get more housing in the state of Maryland for the last several years. Unfortunately, we're not getting there. Permits numbers are down, and it is just more and more difficult to build in Maryland. There's a lot of reasons. There's vacant land. It is not always bad actors. This bill lumps bad actors and good actors together. There's a lot of reasons we're not building. So we have a lot of concerns about that. I'm just going to reiterate some of the things that people said here. And the appeals will be many. You will hear from your constituents about appeals. So we do have a lot of concerns about that. We need to encourage investment. We need to encourage people to come to Maryland. If you haven't read the Comptroller's report on housing, I strongly encourage you to do so. It talks about some of the things that Mr. Valentine just mentioned that we need to do to fix housing. We have a lot of concerns about going down this road to fix the housing crisis. So with that, we urge an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your alacrity there. Really appreciate that. This concludes the testimony by those who are unfavorable. Are there questions? Yes, I see Delegate Griffith has one.
Sorry, real estate tax day. I have a lot of questions. I apologize. I missed your name, sir.
Alex Bouchel.
Mr. Burchell, so you started talking my language, so I work for a title company, and you started taking a deep dive, and you started going down the path of talking about the complexities of identifying who owns the properties, why they would be difficult to track down, if they even know it, and this is something we run into quite a bit in title. And I work with a lot of investors, a lot of people that, fix and flip, and, and a lot of these guys are just kind of the solution, I think, to actually solving the blight in some of these communities is the private investors that are using their own money to invest and redevelop some of these properties. But could you take a little bit deeper dive into the nature of some of these properties, the fact that, people may have these properties and not even have a clue they do?
Sort of a personal anecdote. Last year, I was doing some genealogy research with my mother and found an address of a great-great-grandparent who lived in West Baltimore. So I looked up on Google the house, and it was in a block of beautiful old row homes in a blighted area. The house was gone in the middle. So I was like, well, who owns this? So I look it up in SDAT, and I find a woman's name. I Google her. Her obituary in the Afro-American showed up from 1971. I then looked into it. That property's been on tax sale for decades. There's a $250,000 debt at this point. It's assessed for $1,000. I tried to figure out who owns it just out of curiosity. She had a life estate deed that left it to some presumably children or who knows where they are. The property is, no one is gonna buy it at tax sale to own an empty lot in the middle of a block between two rows. It's worth nothing. I know the comptroller deals with unclaimed property. It's one of its mandates, which is sort of like lost or unclaimed bank accounts and things like that, which is about the extent of my knowledge. I don't, if you bought this at tax sale, and again, I'm not an expert on tax sales, but you would then try to collect the taxes from the owner, and they presumably want their property back, and you get clean title after this expensive process. What are you going to do with it?
So I guess the point you're trying to make is, in some of these situations, it's not a bad actor.
Yeah, no one's
It's not
there.
even alive anymore.
I mean, I looked at all the ones in this study which were saying, look, there's this property 2 blocks away at an end of row, which I also looked into and was apparently brought at an auction by some exuberant buyer and is now still empty because it's worthless. But that was the one that was used as a comp on these. I looked into every lot. I looked up every owner. I couldn't find them anywhere. None of them had paid taxes for the last 3 years, which is far back as I could look. And their tax bill is $23.60 a year.
And from your experience, all what would happen in this situation is somebody would try to purchase this property at some point, and as part of trying to make it, valuable at all, they would just hire a short sale negotiator, and any short sale negotiator worth their salt will be able to get all those assessments wiped out anyway.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know that side of it. The other thing is, they're plotted for these row home developments were built over the last 150 years, and the lots are 10 feet wide, and they're very deep. And if you have one of them, and you're in the middle of a block of a platted block with just this, what are you going to do with it? Build a doghouse? I mean, it's not a shotgun shack. I mean, it's really practically difficult.
Understand. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, that takes care of we do have one. Thank you. Can you make your light a little brighter for me, please? Thanks. Very good. Delegate Roberson.
There you go, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. And I want to follow up just on this question, and anybody can chime in on this because I'm trying to understand the bill. I was of the understanding, and maybe I'm not misunderstanding the bill, but I'm of the understanding that if this bill were to pass, this property that was assessed and has back pay of taxes for $250,000 would now be reassessed because it's been lying dormant and vacant for years, could be reassessed to pay lower taxes now. Am I misunderstanding that?
this is what I think is going on. The idea is, look, the land portion of a property, there's two components. Is SDAT valuing the land appropriately, even under our current system? Some people would say no. But yes, I guess what you could do is charge a higher rate on the land portion. In these cases, it would be a vacant lot, and you could charge a higher rate because it's land only and presumably impel some development. Last year you all did adopt and create a new subclass of property for vacant and blighted property, which I don't think has really been given a chance to work yet. I mean, I don't know if even Baltimore City has adopted it yet.
Correct. I think they're doing a pilot program,
to,
correct.
Yeah. But, that might help with these. Again, as I said, the problem is title on a lot of these properties. You could raise the tax on some of these lots to the sky, but no one's paying it. That's another issue, and how to deal with that. Not
right.
prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to look really carefully. I'm pretty far down here. That's why I have trouble seeing all the way over there. I think we have no further questions, and thank you all for coming to testify. We're now going to move to the virtual folks who are here virtually. I want to ask the guests who are here virtually, you're on screen. You can leave your camera on if you make sure you're muted until it's your turn to testify. We appreciate that. If we reach a time when there are questions, you can unmute if the question is addressed to you. We will start off with Zach Blanchard, who is actually a council member from Baltimore City. Welcome, sir. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Delegate. I'm Councilman Zach Blanchard for Baltimore City's 11th District, which is the downtown and surrounding area. Unfortunately, the daycares are closed today, so I wasn't able to make it down in person. I appreciate Mr. Ballantyne's concern for downtown Baltimore, and obviously I support that as well. So Maryland ranks as one of the worst states in the country to start a business, and Maryland has a housing shortage. Let's shift the tax burden off homeowners and productive businesses. Let me state the obvious, because I feel like it's kind of getting lost in this conversation. We've owned both of those dubious distinctions under the current property tax paradigm. Like what we have right now, we're in this situation with that system. The status quo penalizes investing in properties. The status quo incentivizes speculation over productive use, etc. Delegate Stewart's proposed legislation pivots away from all of these bad incentives. I'm thrilled to see so many groups involved in the conversations, but listening to the opposition testimony and having read through in advance, I think a lot of the groups who are opposing it, Chamber of Commerce, NIFB, multifamily housing, make productive. And I've already reached out to Mr. Wiggins, and I plan to reach out to several more of these folks to discuss this more in depth. There's certainly valid questions about how land is assessed and how commercial property appeals would work under the split rate system, but we shouldn't oppose it just because. Lastly, I'll briefly say to the gentleman who's talking a lot about vacant property in Baltimore City, one, if the land isn't worth anything, I'm seeing my connection's unstable. Can you hear me, Delegate?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're dropping in a little bit, but we're getting the gist. We're doing great.
Okay. If the land isn't worth anything, then it's not going to be penalized. And B, I have plenty of examples in my district where we're seeing speculation of blighted properties and vacant land across the district. So shift the tax burden off homeowners and productive businesses, help tackle the housing shortage, help get more businesses starting in Maryland, stop penalizing investment, start penalizing speculation, make our land work. I appreciate y'all's consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Yeah, and I should point out to the committee that we're moving, these are favorables. We put the unfavorables live, but now the favorables are here with us online. And actually, just checking quickly, all of the online testimony is going to be favorable on this particular bill. Next, we have Daniel Brennan. Sir.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking time to listen to me. Can everyone hear me? Is my connection good?
We're hearing you fine, sir.
Brilliant, thank you. My name is Daniel Brennan. I'm an academic historian and policy analyst here in Baltimore City, but more importantly, for the purposes of this conversation, I'm a Baltimore City homeowner and property taxpayer. I strongly support the committee to endorse the bill and move it forward with haste. I submitted a written testimony which addresses, I think, the concern that I would have if I were in your shoes. Is this legislation likely to be abused by local officials, right? Are we creating a tax authority that's going to create unintended consequences or is going to have a low probability of success in the field? And as someone who has, on the side of my professional work, done a deep dive into the history of how these policies have been enacted. And I should actually just say Delegate Stewart actually undersold the experience in Pittsburgh. The first Pittsburgh land value tax was established in the early 1910s. They increased it during the 1970s, which is when they saw the real returns. But we have over a century across jurisdictions, both in the United States and overseas, a lot of robust evidence to show that this can be implemented well. So that leaves the question, will it be implemented poorly or with corrupt intent or influence? And I actually overheard some of the earlier bills under consideration. You see business interests rightfully really concerned about additional tax authorities being targeted against them. And here's where I think the benefit of the land value tax is so clear. It has to be applied evenly. You don't end up with a situation where local officials can sort of pick and choose winners and losers with the tax system. This is actually much fairer. I'll also disagree. Like, I'm a political independent and financial conservative. I agree with a lot of the chamber's concerns about what additional taxes will do. I am all for cutting the corporate and actually personal tax rate in Baltimore City in particular and shifting it onto property. Economic theory and practice tells us that's the best way to drive growth. We're just giving cities and municipalities across the state the ability to do those pro-growth things.
Thank you for your time. Next, we have Owen Bailey to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Owen Bailey. I am the Director of Land Use and Policy with the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, serving 6 counties on Maryland's Eastern Shore, speaking in support of House Bill 78. Across Maryland, we see consistent pattern that when development is concentrated in places with existing infrastructure, the public saves money and businesses thrive. Population-centered growth lowers the long-term cost of roads, water, sewer, emergency services, and creates stronger, more reliable markets for commercial investment. At the same time, conserving natural and working lands deliver economic value that is often overlooked. Forests and wetlands reduce stormwater management costs. Agricultural landscapes support major sectors of rural economies, and parks and open space increase nearby property values and help attract employers and talent. Conservation is not a luxury, it is a foundational part of a healthy economy. Sustainable funding is just as important. Maryland communities need revenue systems that reflect the true cost of different land uses. When funding aligns with those costs, Maryland communities can maintain infrastructure responsibly, protect natural resources, and create more predictable conditions for private investment. Businesses benefit from communities where growth patterns are stable, infrastructure is well maintained, and the public services are not strained by costly development on the fringe. Ultimately, sustainable land use and conservation strengthen both local economies and community resilience, and for that, I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Next, we have Kevin Canale. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here in support of House Bill 78. You have my written testimony. I know there's been a lot of discussion. I'm not going to repeat, but I would like to add just a few things from a county perspective. We support the bill because counties need better tools to align growth with land use, infrastructure, and long-term planning decisions. This bill gives counties an optional way to better match tax structure to how development actually drive costs on the ground. Under current law, we have to tax land and buildings together, even though they produce very different land use and growth outcomes. Counties fund schools, roads, other public facilities, and public infrastructure that's tied directly to growth, but current tax policy does not reflect those dynamics. So allowing counties to separate land from improvements could better guide growth, redevelopment, and infill where it makes sense locally. Nothing in this bill requires a tax increase or any policy change. Every decision stays with local governments. Any use of this authority would require local legislative action, public hearings, direct accountability to residents. All the same people who you heard from today could come and testify locally should a county want to bring this forward. Municipalities already have broader flexibility in this area, and this bill simply gives counties a comparable planning tool. This bill supports smart growth patterns without forcing a one-size-fits-all approach statewide, and for those reasons, we'd urge a favorable report on House Bill 78, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Canale. And I will point out that there are microphones flashing, so if the virtual guests would like to stay on board, they may find themselves being asked a question after everyone is done. Next, we have Gregory Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Greg Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Land Economics. We do this modeling with cities all across the nation. There are 6 and 7 states considering similar legislation to what Maryland's considering. I previously served as a program analyst at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The number one thing we're thinking about is how to encourage more development at a time when working families are seeing housing prices increase. To me, we must look at our property tax structures, particularly when Baltimore has a property tax of 2%, we're taxing the wrong thing. You've heard a lot of people say this, so I won't repeat it other than to say that when we do this modeling with cities across the country, it really matters that the city has authority to even think about these issues, to think about the incentives they create. So I echo what Kevin was just saying about allowing municipalities to even consider these options to do the in-depth data analysis. I also want to recognize that I wrote a report on vacant land valuation in Baltimore. You had a situation where there was not consistency. You'd walk down a block and you'd see one parcel valued at $20,000 and the next parcel valued at $2,000 on the land value. That inconsistency is when you can flag land value appeals. Luckily, and I appreciate SDAT taking a stance, SDAT has taken a stance and decided to fix those issues. I saw their first round of reevaluations come out in this January, which were very optimistic. It passes this consistency check that ensures that land valuations are consistent as you walk down a block and then as you jump across the city from more valuable to less valuable areas. And so when we talk about land valuations, I think SDAT's already making great improvements on that front and is listening to the market in ways that I appreciate and I can commend. And so with that said, I'll leave my testimony there other than to say that we're taxing the wrong things. When we do this analysis, apartment buildings do benefit. They see a decrease. And it's not just about shifting taxes to those apartment buildings that already exist, but incentivizing multifamily housing and apartment buildings into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ben Lynn, are you present?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Ben Lynn, and I serve as the Press and Communications Associate for ATU Local 689. Local 689 supports the bill and urges a favorable report. The bill would be an invaluable reform for land use and taxation that would benefit working class Marylanders and help usher in a more livable and accessible future. Local 689 members are working class people who make their living running the region's transit systems. They're the frontline workers to the frontline workers, but unfortunately the crisis of housing affordability and the lack of accessible communities hits the workforce hard. It's magnified by the fact that many systems that we power are too often only in areas that are out of reach for us and our families. And we don't have enough transit accessible communities, and it scares affordable working class people. Land value taxation, also known as a split roll, is a solution we see to solve both, to help counties funding budget shortfalls while also incentivizing transit-oriented development under LVT, multifamily housing, mixed-use development, and other more maximized use for plots and lands are advantage. Thus, if applied to areas surrounding transit, for example, the approach would yield transformative results. In other words, we could have a way to both fund transit and other public goods while also not penalizing housing production in the process. A fundamental fairness principle is at stake here. Land around public investments like rapid transit is made more valuable by them, and allowing the returns to the land to be entirely kept as a windfall benefit to private entities doesn't make sense for the community. All jurisdictions, including counties and Baltimore City, should have the ability to enact such a measure if they choose. HB 78 does exactly that, and we could not be more excited about it. Thank you to the delegate for this worthy measure, and we highly encourage the committee to issue a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice timing. All right. That's everyone who wanted to testify. We have a question from Delegate Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question for Councilman Blanchard. First, Councilman, thank you for your partnership on the town hall at Morgan State this spring to lift up how important this issue is in Baltimore City. My question speaks to something that I talked to SDAT about at a briefing yesterday, last week, where they talked about the vacant land assessment initiative that they're taking on in Baltimore City and helping to try to right-size what some of that, and prevent what that shock could be that we heard about in the Pennsylvania case where they implemented it and the shock came and then they went backwards. Part of the challenge in Baltimore, as you know, is that some of the land value assessments that currently exist, you can be on the same block and it can be wildly different assessments. You've been working on that with SDAT. Can you just give us a high level on kind of what your work, how that's been going and what some of the outcomes have been?
Yeah, thanks a ton, Delegate. So kind of two sides of it. One, as you mentioned, and as Greg mentioned earlier, SDAT is already moving towards a much more effective way of evaluating land, which is incredibly important. We already see that in the Group 2 assessments in the city this year. So that's really moving in the right direction. A couple things they need to continue to figure out, but it's a gradual process. And bigger picture, we're talking gradual processes, is if you look at the places that have implemented this tax shift, it's never like this next year, it's a full change to the new system, right? We're talking about a 5, 6, 10-year perhaps transition into the new system so that all the property owners know, can see this coming, right? Can start to make those investments in quarterlies, can move in the right direction before they're being penalized for doing something that wasn't penalized under the current system. So I think that there's some level of just like fear with uncertainty amongst property owners and different groups like that really gets addressed meaningfully when you're looking at a gradual change that also allows the SDAT to really iron out the details and figure out what a commercial appeals process is going to look like and do all these sorts of things. So I think that SDAT is already moving in the right direction on this. When you couple that with a gradual shift, which at least every municipality in Pennsylvania that I'm familiar with did a gradual shift, and I certainly think that's the right move, that helps tremendously with that.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, that concludes the virtual part of the testimony and concludes all the testimony on House Bill 78. And thank you very much. That also concludes our hearing for today. Remind you that we have a very important briefing, in my opinion, tomorrow at 1 o'clock with the Appropriations Committee. Thank you. We're adjourned.